How much do you trust yourself when the needle of your compass suddenly stops pointing north and starts pointing directly at you? You've heard of Aokigahara Forest. You've heard the stories, the myths. Everyone knows this is a place of silence, a place where equipment goes haywire and you lose your way. But I am not a tourist. I am a researcher. I didn't come here for tragedy. I came here for the silence. There is no wind in this forest. You can't understand that until you feel it. There is no rustling of leaves, no birds. The sound of your own footsteps feels incredibly loud, almost violent. It felt like I was walking not on the ground, but at the bottom of a pool. I found a spot where the trees had woven together, especially densely, and I stepped into that darkness. I felt myself losing my orientation. I noticed an old, barely visible cut on a nearby tree. It was a symbol. I don't know what it meant, but that mark was there long before I was. And it wasn't made to find a way out, it was made to mark something else. I felt like less of a researcher and more of an unwanted guest who had broken an invisible boundary. I backed away from that tree and immediately pulled out my compass. It was my last hope for objective reality. I took 3 steps deeper into the woods, and that's when it started. The needle didn't just twitch, it spun violently like a propeller gone insane. When it stopped, my heart stopped beating. The needle pointed straight at me. Not north. It was pointing at the center of my chest. I realized it wasn't broken. It simply understood that here, in this forest, I was the center, and there was nothing but pure lostness around me. I tossed the compass into the moss. I tried to force myself to leave, but something compelled me to look under the roots of the next tree. And there it was, a completely new, untouched children's toy, a small red plastic ball that looked like it had been dropped an hour ago. It wasn't covered in moss or dampness. It was perfectly clean. Next to it, in the wet dirt, I saw a fresh, small handprint. The forest hadn't left tracks behind me, but it had left evidence of a presence right at my feet. I was at my limit. I ignored the toy, but set up my voice recorder. I stood there for 2 minutes trying to slow my breathing. I thought, this is a perfect silence. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of absence. I felt something shift in my mind, trying to fill that vacuum. I went back to the recording to make sure everything was clean. I listened to my voice, my heavy breathing, and then dotted. A faint, dry, thin sound. I turned up the volume, and I realized it was a whisper. It was a human voice, and it was saying my name. It repeated it like an old, broken gramophone. And this whisper wasn't sad or weak. It was hungry. I ripped off the headphones, but the whisper didn't stop. It wasn't in the recording. It was all around me. I tried to find a logical explanation. I grabbed a dry branch and hit a tree trunk loudly. The sound of the blow was swallowed by the silence, but the whisper didn't break. It only grew more insistent, as if I had angered them. I whispered back, "Who are you?" In that moment, the whisper changed. I heard more than just an imitation of my voice. I heard them repeating my own inner monologue. I should have stayed home, double quotes. I don't belong here, They were inside my head. I was surrounded. The whisper grew louder and angrier. It was a chorus that knew me. They told me I needed to lie down and become part of that silence. I clenched my fists. I knew that if I stayed here for one more second, I would become part of their recording. I understood. My devices weren't breaking. They were amplifying it. I violently threw the voice recorder into the dense trees. I tossed the compass away. I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned and until the whisper turned into a distant, indistinguishable hum. I didn't choose a direction, but suddenly I saw a flash of yellow. Police tape. I burst onto the trail. I was out of Aokigahara. I got to the nearest town and caught the first train. I returned home. I tried to forget, but when I took a shower, I saw it. On my left forearm was a thin, perfectly circular red mark like a pinprick, exactly where the compass needle had pointed. It was impossible, but it was proof the forest didn't just break the device. It made me its target. Now I sit here in my apartment writing this report. I am safe, but I cannot forget that silence. And you know what the most terrifying thing is? The whisper didn't stay there. It moved with me. I turn off the lights, and when the room falls into perfect silence, I listen, and I can almost hear somewhere very far away, as if from another world, a single whisper saying my name. It is waiting for me to get distracted again. It is waiting for me to look into the mirror